Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. We're back. Thank you so much for staying with us. It's time for the Socially Conscious and Entertainment Hour. You're listening to Ain't No Half Step with Marcus J. on globalscaleradio.net. I want to say peace to my homegirl, author Desiree Monique, listening to us on MixLR. We appreciate your support week after week. She always listens to us. Thank you, girl. Appreciate it. Say peace to my man Aaron Turner listening to us on globalscaleradio.net. And special thanks to Nate Jones for joining us in that last segment. At this time, we will go ahead and do what we always do at this time. That is profile a missing and or exploited child. This week, this child is Jacob Bayan, who is a endangered missing child whose date of birth is March 2nd, 2001. He's been missing since yesterday in Germantown, Maryland. It's a black male who stands 5'4", 110 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. He's missing from the Scenery Drive area of Germantown, Montgomery County in Maryland. He was last seen wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, gray hat, blue skinny jeans, and black Adidas sneakers. He may frequent the mobile home park in the area of Middlebrook Road, Maryland Road 355 in Montgomery County, Maryland. If you have seen Jacob Bayan, it's been missing since yesterday. Please contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children on their website, missingkids.com, or contact them by phone at 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678. Let's bring home Jacob Bayan. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. All right, what I want to do now is just kind of go around the room. A few questions that I kind of wanted to get into, and I want to break this into two segments. One is going to focus on the fact that today is Martin Luther King Appreciation Day around the country here in the United States. And I also want to talk a little bit about the fact that President Barack Hussein Obama was inaugurated for his second term today, coincidentally on Martin Luther King Day, and how that eerie connection seems to have come to play here in 2013. So first thing I want to do, I'm going to start with the lady in the room. Sylvia, I'm going to get you first. I want to go around the room, kind of ask everybody, as far as Martin Luther King Jr., with today being the day we celebrate him. Last week, of course, we actually on the 15th celebrated his 84th birthday, if he was still with us. What does Martin Luther King mean to you, his legacy? Just when you hear Martin Luther King, what goes through your mind?
My dreams. Just from that speech alone. I would say my dreams. I would say inspiration, hard work, dedication. He went after what he believed in. He set a goal, and he didn't stop until he died for it. That's what I think of when I think of King. I think of strong woman, because Coretta stood beside her man. So I think of inspiration when I think of King. He plays a big major part of the reason why I'm chasing my dreams.
Big Rope, what's your thoughts when you hear Martin Luther King? What comes to your mind?
I mean, he gave up something for us, for not just black people but all people. I mean, he realized that in order for us to be together nation, we all have to be together, regardless of color, creed, or anything like that, and I wasn't there when he had his famous speech, but I kind of wish I was sometimes, just to be there to hear it, from his mouth and not having to listen to a videotape.
Colin Banks.
Sorry, but I had to get the mic. It's really something that's inspirational and thought-provoking when you hear his dream and you see the progress that has come forward from that same standpoint. It's something I wish that he was still alive so I could hear him live versus, like Ruben said, a tape, a YouTube video, or something of that nature. It's that kind of person that you want to see alive, to have seen a Barack Hussein Obama become president of the United States, to incorporate his dream and his thoughts on how and why certain things have happened in this country.
Grizz?
I'm more grateful for Martin Luther King, and what he did in the short time that he was here on this earth, being as a young black man, growing up in the South, living in a neighborhood that was without Dr. King as one of the leaders of the civil rights movement, would have been segregated to a one school or one room school, or not have the same resources, the opportunities that it allowed me as a black man to not just integrate into society, but it gave us opportunity as people of color to say, hey, we're capable. All you have to do is give us the opportunity, And so that's why I think back, and I know we make it real quick, because where I lived at there was a border. It's almost like the other side of the tracks. If you went on Main Street, you was in the Fan. If you went on the other side of Main Street, you was in Randolph. And so you knew, how the lines down south were pretty obvious, And so what the Civil Rights Movement and Dr. King did was it brought that out to the forefront. And it might not have helped, other races, but to black folks, when I say it doesn't help other white folk, like to get them to convert, so to speak, their prejudicial ways or whatever. I don't think that's what King was, all about. To me, it was almost like James Brown, I'm black and I'm proud. We are people. We do good things, and all we needed was the opportunity. Although I was a little differentiated on the whole integration thing, but that's what he means to me, and the long or the short of it.
Martin Luther King to me means, when I look at him, I see a human being. A lot of times he has been put upon a pedestal, which he should. But what I've always been drawn to is the human side of him. The fact that I know as a man who is the same age, essentially, that he was when he was taken from us, obviously I don't know the kind of struggles that he went through with regards to the kind of life that he led. But as far as being he was 39, I'm a 38-year-old man who has a family. And I try to work my 9 to 5, and I try to manage some of the extracurricular activities that I have in my life. And sometimes I have a good day and sometimes I don't. But I try to look at the fact that even when I'm not having a good day, it can't possibly be as rough as what his bad days must have been like when he had the weight of not the country, but the world on his shoulders. And he walked around every single day knowing that somebody's going to kill me. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, but it's going to come. And when he stood on that balcony at the Lorraine Motel, of which I went to twice this year, or twice in 2012, I went to Memphis 2 times this year. And I went there and I stood and I looked up in that spot where he stood. And the calm that he must have had to be brave enough to step out there knowing how exposed he was.
Memphis.
That to me takes the kind of peace that most of us will never know. And that peace was inside the heart of a man who knew that everything that he did was leading towards his death. That to me is power. That's powerful. And here we are 45 years after his murder, and we still feel the same way. Now, we're the generation that came after his death. We weren't alive in 1968 when he was lost. We were the generation that grew up doing book reports and stuff on him, and grew up, I actually remember when his birthday became a national holiday, and my daughter and that next generation, Lil Banks, and that generation, they're going to look at him and see him more as a deity, which is cool. I understand that, but I personally would prefer to see him more as a human being. So what I want to do kind of now is just kind of talk about him. Is his message, is it still relevant?
Yes.
I mean, anybody take it. Is he still relevant, Sylvia?
Yes, he is. And I'm going to say this. We still got a lot of bad stuff going on, but we also have a lot of good stuff going on. You have a lot of people in my generation and your generation that are getting up and speaking more and doing rallies and standing behind certain topics that we believe in. We're rallying. We're doing different states. Like, people are coming together now, and that's something what King was about. It was about voice. You can do something and you can change something if you stick together and do it all together. And it's like a lot of people now, are really doing that, and I think that is so cool. Like, we really have movements going on. For instance, like the Trayvon Martin thing.
Yep.
Or any certain thing that we are touched about, which
would
is a
never
lot
do
of
that.
things that's going on.
Yeah.
We are starting to speak out. The social media. We have Michael Baisden that talks about this stuff, and then different states, you know, everybody's rallying and standing up for what they believe in until something is done. I'm liking that part of it. So that all comes from that speech and that education that we got from King, you know.
Grizz, what's your thoughts?
I mean, for me, the relevancy of King, his legacy, is more about social justice. When you think back into like the 60s civil rights movement, social justice movements only got but so far. I think the last strongest one might have been the women's suffrage movement in the 1920s. So that was about 40 years between the 20s and the 60s, where people, the downtrodden, the people who were Jim Crow, was victims of Jim Crow, they did not mobilize the way we had. Of course, we had our black churches down south and all across the country, but you know what King's legacy did is it put social justice on the forefront, not just in American politics, but in the conscience of America. Just like Lincoln, or just like, I won't say Lincoln did it, but just like a Frederick Douglass would have done it, or the abolitionists would have done it back in 150 years ago, where yes, you knew that slavery was going on, but what were you up north doing about it? Or yes, you knew Jim Crow was happening down south, but what was you doing as a Philadelphia lawyer about it? Because what affects you, what affects the black man down south, indirectly affects you as this Philadelphia lawyer. So he brought social justice to the forefront, and I definitely think we would not have a Barack Obama if it was not
Most
for
definitely.
Martin Luther King.
Well,
we might not have had a Martin Luther King if it was not for Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly a natural progression. You know, Frederick Douglass, of course, begot Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois in that generation, and of course that generation gave us Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and then of course Barack Hussein Obama now. So it's a natural, of course, natural progression. And certainly Al Sharpton. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge fan of him. And, you know, I think a lot of the people who have issues with him don't take the time to listen to him. They more so listen to his detractors as opposed to, actually listen. Actually listening to him. Yeah, a little bit. Basically, here's another thing that I want to get into as far as Martin Luther King. I mean, we obviously know what his plight was and how certainly towards the end of his life, he was about, you know, poor people and making sure that poor people were taken care of, which is the whole reason why he was in Memphis to rally around the sanitation workers who were striking. And that's what he was there doing. But we know certainly he was a big proponent for equal rights and racial equality and things of that sort. One story, well, actually two stories that Big Rube brought up to me this weekend were pretty clear incidences of racism that happened. One was in Wisconsin and one was in Minnesota. In Wisconsin, a boy was suspended from school for giving a black classmate a noose and KKK symbols. And then the incident, that's the incident in Wisconsin, and the incident in Minnesota, the community, of course, is in an uproar because students hung dark-skinned dolls in the schools. Now, I highlight those two situations because not so much the incidences of racism, which unfortunately in this country we've become all too familiar with. What my issue is, both of those incidents involve children. They're kids. They're high school students in what would have been considered free states if we were looking at prior to 1865, if you understand what I'm saying. We're talking about states that weren't legalized slavery. You know, so I guess the point I'm making is you would think that in the North, particularly in the Midwest, those people are supposed to be mostly progressive people, that you wouldn't have these incidences. And these are kids, Grizz, so I'm going to come to you on this one first. With regards to Martin Luther King, what the hell is going on with the generation of children who have this kind of hatred where they would do this, because these are isolated issues. I mean, this happens, and we don't talk about it all the time because, to be honest with you, get tired of talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
But these are kids, Grizz.
Well, you can't legislate behavior. That's one of the things that's a struggle for any politician, any leadership, anyone who's trying to change the hearts and minds. You're not going to get everybody. But I honestly believe that since the 60s, the civil rights movement, and since the progressive movement as far as politics-wise has become stronger even after this election. I mean, we can even go back to Bill Clinton in 92 and 96, and you can remember you had these right-wing, anti-government militias, Timothy McVeigh's. It's Marcus J., you're going to feel me when I say this. It's this innate fear that people in power have that whatever I got, because the numbers are not working for me, somebody else is going to come and take it. And they might come and even take it from my child in Minnesota or my child in Wisconsin. And so as a parent, and I sit out here and look to see how diverse the country is, or diverse my child's school is, if I'm from this mindset and I know I'm working hard to live a middle-class life in rural Minnesota or whatever, trying to secure my child to let him know, hey, you got to be one step ahead of the game, and these people over here is the ones that's going to take it away from you. The Hispanic that's working hard cleaning the building, or the one that's out here doing the lawn, or the black man that's in here that's the janitor or whatever. You know, these are the ones who, if you're not on top of your game, they're going to take away from you. And the premise is always based on fear. I mean, I don't get it. I get it, but you know what I mean.
I'm getting some love from the Facebook fan page. Aaron Turner still listening to us. Appreciate your support, brother. If it wasn't for Dr. King, it wouldn't have been Ain't No Half Steppin', the Aaron Turner Show, or Jay Grizzy to do comedy any venue, and definitely a Sylvia Mitchell, Lissa P as females do comedy. That's from Aaron Turner.
I got the Chitlin Circuit.
And then, and then Miss Tony, who of course joins us on Ain't No Half Steppin' Marcus J Monthly, is hitting me on a text message with one of her favorite Dr. King quotes: "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere."
Well said.
Big Rope.
You know, I don't tell the story a lot because partially I think it's funny, but then, you know, as I got older, I really understood what was going on. Now, back when I was around 16, I went to this event for 4-H up in Washington, D.C. What they did, they had like a group of kids from around the country, and what they would come to this place and they would talk about stuff and make how you make change in your community, yada yada yada. Well, I met these 4 people from Minnesota, 4 Caucasian people from Minnesota. Literally, lie to you not, they said to me, you know, it was cool, whatever. It's like, you're the first black person we've ever met. And I'm just kind of like, okay. I mean, I felt I should get a trophy or something, but whatever. But it was just like, in Minnesota, there are no black people in Minnesota. Well, they got some yeah. And this is when the Timberwolves came out. So, for instance, they thought that Pooh Richardson was very cute. I don't understand what that was about.
Okay.
You know.
Wow.
And I mean, that's what I'm saying. You know. That's what they're.
That's the first on Ain't No Half Steppin',
yeah,
Marcus J.
But that's the most that they had come in contact. I mean, other than watching, you know, the TV with sports and stuff to black people, which I thought was really interesting, because I thought they were black people in Minnesota. Apparently, back in
just Prince,
well,
just Prince and Jimmy Jam and Terry
Prince
Lewis.
don't count.
Okay,
obviously, but you know, I'd say this. You know, Minnesota and then Wisconsin, driven through there. Didn't see a lot of black people. In the Wisconsin situation where the kid put the noose and stuff, there were only 3 black kids in that school. My assumption is they're all relatives, but it could be wrong. So, I mean, you know, you sit here, we talk about the racism. I think that's a little bit of blatant racism. You give it to the 1 in 3 black kids in the school. You put it on the white kids, that's just like, what is this? I don't know what this is. You know, I think it comes from the parents.
Yes.
It's not a situation. This stuff is learned. You know, you go to school and you learn stuff, yada, yada, yada. But you don't sit here and do crazy stuff like that. For instance, with they're hanging the dark-skinned baby in the school now. They hung a dark-skinned baby. And then one of the girls, bless her heart, came out to try to protect him. It doesn't matter if I know them. It doesn't matter if the baby was white, purple, whatever. Why you hang a purple baby? You know what I'm saying? Why hang an orange baby? No, you hung a black baby because you could have easily hung a white baby, but that doesn't prove the point. So, to me, I don't think it's I don't think it's necessarily location. It's the parents who are not teaching these kids that, hey, look, this ain't cool. You can't go to school and do stuff like this. One of those kids got expelled, and who hung the baby. He got expelled. Now, how do you expel one? You don't expel the other. The other got suspended, and then apparently in the article says, well, they really have to do something to get back in school. And I'm just kind of like, what do you mean we gotta do? Gotta go dress up in blackface or something to make feel? I mean, I don't understand what they need to do to get back in school. But you only expel one of them.
Colin Banks.
You know, where I live, Marcus, it's very prominent. Not so much. No, I'm not going to say it's very prominent. I'm going to say that it's not. It's visible to the extent where you can see the Confederate flag running up and down the street. You see the schools that are named after these civil
Robert E. Lee.
Robert E. Lee. No. Well, yeah. Go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
Jefferson Davis, Lee Davis.
Yeah.
All those schools are named after Confederate generals. Is there anything wrong with the school itself? No, it's just the name that they carry. We live in the South. We live in an area that is the northernest southern state there is, and therefore we're going to see it. We're going to be more prevalent to it and things of that nature. Right now, I'm telling my son, given I live in a predominantly white neighborhood, and hey, I love my neighbors, don't get me wrong. I'm telling him some of the history of the things that his grandfather and his father have gone through in dealing with segregation. Matter of fact, I told my neighbors, I was in kindergarten and first grade. I was segregated then. I went from a neighborhood school. I should have gone to Mary Mumford, which was closer to my house by about 20 minutes, and I was bused to A.V. North, Northside Richmond. How are you going to send me past two elementary schools? Because West Hampton was right behind me, but it was in the county, so I couldn't go to that school. But Mary Mumford was on the way, and you're going to send me to a school 20 minutes from the closest elementary school? So, yeah, I learned about it. I didn't understand it, but they wanted me to go there. And that, I don't know who was in charge of the school board and whatnot, but that was Richmond. White people were. Right, they probably were.
What I want to do, I want to take a break. I'm going to.
You know we're about to get heated.
Yeah.
You know I'm about to get heated.
Well, we know where you are. But what I want to do, I want to kind of change direction a little bit, kind of get in a little bit into the connection with Martin Luther King. With regards to Barack Hussein Obama and the fact that there was the inauguration today. But while we're in a break, we're going to take a few minutes to listen to a portion of one of Martin Luther King's most famous speeches. I Have a Dream right here. We're going to take a few minutes. Marcus J. and I have Steppin, be back.